Even hit it. What's up, everybody? This is Heat Override, and I'm ready to bring the pain for you this week. Woo! That episode was so hot, we had to bring it back. We had to spark up another one. What's up, Taye? How you doing? How's the very blunt sports podcast been? Oh yeah.
What's going on? Once again, it's so nice. We had to do it twice. I'm your co-host with the most, here to brag, boast, celebrate, toast. He came to bring the pain, and I came to bring the smoke. So let's just go at it. The blunt is now in session. Cost you nothing to hop in rotation, so join us.
Woo woo, dude. We was just flipping out about how Steve Buscemi just literally got punched in the face in New York. Literally
breaking news. Breaking news. Right before we even jumped on, we talked about that. That was happening right now.
Yeah, like Mr. Crazy Eye, he's like,
Oh, man, the googly shit. Oh, by the way, happy Mother's Day to all the women out there. Got to throw that out there. We love y'all.
Yeah,
we support women's sports and all that.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day as well, man. It's big, man. Mothers are important, and people forget that message every single day when they're sitting here fighting online and doing all this dumbass shit, right?
Everybody got a mom.
Their mom. That's right. That's right,
Everybody
man.
got a mom.
That's right. Mine's been gone for 15 years. She was a good woman, though. It happens. But she lives on through a lot of legacy, a lot of things. She played a lot of video games with me and everything just like that. So, I got nothing. But dude, one time she took us to an Indian powwow in the middle of Pennsylvania. Like literally didn't even know we were going. Went somewhere. I can't even remember. We're just kids driving in the middle of Pennsylvania. She heard there's an Indian powwow. I went there. And I was taller than the Indians, and I was 12. I don't even know how that's possible. I'm not a tall man. I'm 5'9". And them dudes was like 4'8".
Oh man. Honestly, the main thing that I got from my mom is still, living. Happy Mother's Day to her.
Mm-hmm.
Main thing I got from her was basically independence, showing me how to do stuff early at a young age. Ironing my clothes, washing dishes, cooking, just giving me the tools that, I need to know. I think that every man needs to know, whether you're in a relationship or you single, you need to know these things.
Yeah. Like, here's the thing. If you own a suit, if you can't sew the button on a suit, if you can't iron the suit, you're just taking it. You could take it to the dry cleaners. There's more pride in it when you can do your own clothes, like tying your own tie. Like how many dudes
I'll be
know
honest,
how to
I never grasped on the sewing. It never was my thing.
Well, you had home ec when I was in school. So
yeah, me too.
I took it. I know. Yeah, he was about that age, right? And yeah. I took it though, right? Because it was an easy credit. And that's actually where I learned how to sew. My mom didn't teach me. My mom could sew, but I kind of taught myself. My wife, she don't know. So I'm just like, so
that's like a lost art in a way.
It is. It's one of those things. It shows like as this world, and we're going to get into that when we start talking about how rap, hip hop, everything's involved. But at the same time, just that is a lost art, man, because you're like, what happened with the button? Now you're going to go buy another $300 Armani shirt just because you can't sew a button?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, man,
unless that button is actually broke, then yeah.
I mean, if it's a gold button at that point. Gold-plated button.
Yeah,
like, I can tell that's not fake, man. You'd be like, someone come up and you'd be like, that's not real Armani. You'd be like, yeah, it is. They'd be like, man, you got a fake button right there.
Yeah, they're gonna notice that one button is out there.
Yeah, that's what they do.
It's out the loop.
Yeah,
they don't even care that it's Armani. If they see one button that don't say Armani, it's like the whole thing is discredited.
Yeah, it's Artani at that point.
Yes, it's something.
But yeah, man, this feud's been smoking, man. Everybody knows we're going to get into this Drake beef right now. There's so many ways to go about this and everything. And I know that everybody has a hot take, and there's more songs coming out. I mean, there's underground stuff. There's conspiracy theories going on, man. When this first hit your eyes, hit your ears, what did you think, man?
You know what? The first thing I thought about it was, well, it's about damn time. Because honestly, both of them been, taking subliminal shots at each other for years. And what people need to understand is rap, and I think not just rap, but music in general is a competitive sport because everybody's trying to be number one. They're trying to have that number one single. They want that radio play. They want that record sales. Everybody's, competing. It's just in rap and hip hop is just celebrated more because it's one of the elements that made rap and hip hop what it is. So it was basically about time. Everybody is a sucker for a good fight. this is just a verbal spar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to see the two top people at their field go at it because it has to be number one. It has to be that guy or woman.
Yep.
It has to be a winner or a loser. And one of the best things about this battle is that it didn't turn into beef. Now, a battle strictly stays on record,
I agree
on
with that.
wax. I go at you, you go at me, things like that. Nobody gets hurt.
Yep.
You know, all of that dumb stuff, you know, that has happened in the past with other, you know, rap feuds and wars and
Yep.
stuff that highly
Shootings.
unnecessary. I'm glad with these two, they understood that they power and they
Yep.
words, they influence, it brought out the best in both of them.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, my opinion about it is. So it was
Mm-hmm.
definitely good for hip hop. It was good for culture, and it was just good for the competitive spirit. You know,
Yeah.
anytime you have somebody that makes you better or has a part in making you better, can
Mm-hmm.
only take you up to that next level. You know, you're only as good as your dancing partner. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? So both guys sharpened each other's pen, pencil, or whatever they use. So this was definitely good for hip hop, and it didn't end in no type of violence or anything like that.
Nope.
Even though they both went low on each other with the lyrics, they
Yeah.
went low, but they still kept it in the booth.
Yeah. I mean, just wow. Like when you first started talking about this, you almost like when you started describing the whole hip hop and rap game, and you practically started describing the NBA, how like everybody is like friends now. They're all going out to dinners after the games.
Yeah,
This ain't like Mike and Larry after at the end of the game, one of them goes to hit their, give each other a slap in the hand, and instead they kick him in the shoe or something like that. This isn't feud like that. That's like when you were bringing up earlier feuds. Of course, one of the more popular ones because it ended the way it did, and so much darkness surrounds it in the gray areas with Tupac and Biggie, and then just so
right.
many, so many other rappers out of there, Nipsey Hussle, and it just the list keeps going on. Of you have these people, they have backgrounds, they try to make things right when things happen, and then things end up not turning out well for them. And then some other people keep it legit, like these guys right here.
It was, you know, and it reminded me of when Jay-Z and Nas went at it.
Yes.
And a lot of people said that was one of the better feuds, one of the better battles, because like I said, with the Drake and the Kendrick Lamar,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't end with anybody getting hurt.
Nope.
Nobody's crews jumped on the
Mm-hmm.
other crew. It was just like, I'm gonna go at you on wax, you gonna go at me on wax, and
Mm-hmm.
we just gonna keep it at that. And if you look at Jay-Z and Nas after that battle, both of them got better and went higher.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
so it is a good end story to battling, you know, it
Yeah.
really is.
Well, that's something I wrote down for us to talk about a little later. We're talking about it right now because it just shows what's going on with rap right now. So when I was growing up, that's we talked about this when you brought up that Kendrick Lamar was a battle rapper in LA and things that I never even knew that because of course me being with my old head stuck in the damn freaking underground world and just listening to the same guys all the time, I don't get to
Yeah.
explore a lot of new artists unless they really appeal to me. So yes, Drake and Kendrick would be two of the people that would go at it because I was asked on the way back from a tournament about like 7 months ago, and we were riding, and they're all younger than me. They're like 21, 20. The dude's now 21, and there's girl, and I'm just like, they were like, well, we all know who you like, Locksmith, Spice One, and stuff. Well, like, who are the new group? And I'm like, well, I guess it would have to be like Drake or Kendrick Lamar, but I would lean. And this is before this beef, and I'm like, I guess I would lean Kendrick's way because from what I've heard from him, it seemed more memorable than me. And Drake is a great artist himself. There's nothing against him.
Yeah.
It's exposure. It's just I just don't have that because I'm listening to either DJ Magic Mike or Locke at this time or Spice One or Naughty by Nature or hell, I'm listening to Rob Zombie, Avicii. I mean Simon Shackleton, aka Elite Force. There's so many different music. When you keep yourself in one area, you get a lot of that. But when you spread yourself, you miss a lot of it as well.
Yeah, honestly, one of the main reasons why I always like Kendrick because he was, I hate to say this, but he was a throwback to when lyrics and
Mm-hmm.
words and having wordplay actually meant something. Whereas it's like with this generation or whatever, I hate to say it, you don't see too many people taking thought into their pen game and
Mm-hmm.
into their approach. Whereas you can see with him, He puts emphasis on words. He makes you think. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't want to think. A lot of people, just want something quick that's going to have them bop or whatever. But, and I hate to sound, nostalgic or whatever, but when we were listening to rap music and when we was coming up,
Mm-hmm.
you was able to tell who was who. You
Yeah.
know, everybody didn't sound the same.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Everybody sounded different, even if it was somebody from New York. All New York rappers didn't sound the same, but you could tell that
Mm-hmm.
that person was from New York. You know what
Exactly.
I'm saying? Jay-Z
Yeah.
didn't sound like Biggie, and Biggie didn't sound like Nas.
And they
Things
didn't
like
sound like
that.
Pun. They didn't sound like Joe. They didn't sound like any. They
Exactly.
all had their unique sounds. That is such a great thing. In the West Coast was exactly the same, like you were just getting into. Is
And the
Cube
same
didn't
thing,
sound like Dre.
with down south too, especially 80s, 90s, early 2000s. You could put in a CD and don't even have to
Yeah.
know the name of the song, but you could know who that rapper is on that verse without
Mm-hmm.
even looking at the liner notes. You could be like, oh, I didn't know such and such was on this song because it was something about that person that
Yep.
stood out. Even if it was
Exactly.
five people on one song,
Mm-hmm.
everybody stood out in their own unique way. Now, if you put five of these rappers on one song, you don't know who is who because
Yeah.
everybody's using the same style, using the same. It's like, and that's what Kendrick had brought to me was something that was unique and something that was different that was going to
Mm-hmm.
stand out on his own.
Yeah, you raised up a good point. So a song actually to kind of break that has a lot of alliterations in it is I got five on it. So you have the regular Lunas kind of beat, you got them, they're rapping it, but then you have one of my favorite ones, the West Coast edit, who puts in Humpty, who puts in Spice One, and it's like and Spice One kills it. And at the end, he's the last guy. But you have so many different rappers going through that just even the addition of Humpty, like Humpty, but you got him in there, you got him rapping, and it's not good. And there's uh other versions of that song at the same time that
To
they
to
put in.
people to people that really wouldn't necessarily, know, it's like some people would be like, oh, why do they got Humpty on the I got five on it? But if you understand the Bay Area connection with
Yeah.
Loonies and Digital Underground and
Mm-hmm.
E40 and Be Legit and all, I could get into all of
Oh
that.
man,
So it was a Bay Area collab collection that you
it was.
had just named. So to the people that wouldn't know, it wouldn't make sense because Humpty was probably, and yeah, he was more mainstream than
Yep.
Looney's was, but in the rap world, it makes sense. In the Bay Area and on West Coast, it made sense.
It did. And that you brought up a bunch of people right there. And that's why I go back to the Spice One's America's Nightmare CD because he starts out that with E40. That's his on that same CD. He has Method Man, he has Tupac. He's got, I'm pretty sure Yuck Mouth and Sibo are also on that CD as well, too. Just and at that time of rap, there wasn't a lot of collabs going on, but that era you just described right there, that song came out from that time. The West Coast was all together. The East Coast was trying to pick their shit up. They didn't know what was going
Yeah,
on yet, but the East Coast has always been dance. And that's the thing is like a lot of people you go to a club, you're not gonna listen to this is how we do it. You're gonna listen to, back it up or drop that ass or something, whatever. You know,
some with some bounce in it because of
yeah,
the
yeah,
setting.
doing, doing, doing.
Yeah, but like how you had just said with all of those rappers that was on that song. Now, when you listen to that, you was able to tell who was who because
Exactly.
they all didn't sound the same. You could tell that they was from the Bay Area,
Yep.
but the cadence and the flow and how they carried themselves, it
Mm-hmm.
was all different. And that's what you need in hip hop is difference. If you look
Yes.
at a pot of gumbo, it's a pot of everything that's different, but it makes something good. And that's what the hip hop culture needs is more gumbo and less,
Yeah.
processed microwave stuff.
Yeah, and that's it because people want that fix quick. So when you brought up all like the girl rappers earlier, right now the girl rappers practically own everything. This is the guys trying to finally come back in this and even this hip hop playing field out. Because I'll tell you right now, I mean I don't mind the girls, Ice Spice, and everybody else just throwing it down. But at the same time, why are these dudes just laying down like this? They're just like, no, we're just not gonna do anything. It's nice. Diddy's AK, he's AWOL. He's just
Yeah.
done and just like nobody knows what to do anymore. So then out of nowhere, they're like, hey, let's just make some beef, man. That sounds cool. And that's exactly it, because that's where a lot of rap hip hop roots come from. You know, we go back to Yo MTV Raps, the first time I ever saw Locksmith. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have seen him. I wouldn't have known that a group called Frontline, when he was with Left, existed. I didn't know that I could go on LimeWire randomly, and that's how actually this all started, was LimeWire. I randomly downloaded What Is It? And the first line when Locke came in, he was like, well, what did we have here? A real dude repping the Bay? And I was like, and I was gone. I was gone. Left was good, but at the same time, it was like that was my first taste of Locksmith, and I showed it to my brother-in-law, and he's like, "Bro, this dude is cool," and I followed him since. That's around the time with like Alchemist was really big at that time too.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you remember for that time period?
Honestly, like I remember bits and pieces of
Mm-hmm.
Yo MTV Rap, watching it with my uncles and stuff like that. But as I got older, I got more into Rap City, especially Rap City, the basement.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because it was like the basement was important because it really showed who was who when they got into that booth.
Mm-hmm.
What rappers could really, do it on the spot, or
Mm-hmm.
what rappers, would try to like ease their way out of not going into the booth. So that was the best part of me actually seeing, some of your favorite rappers,
Yeah.
happen to do it on the spot. Don't get me wrong, Yo MTV Raps was definitely, historical for
Yeah.
what it did and what it introduced as far as bringing, hip hop mainstream. And I was definitely on it.
Yep.
But
Yep.
to me, the ones that got me the most was Rap City, the basement, because I like that element of,
Yeah.
it was
The like
basically,
down dark shit.
Yo MTV Raps, it was Yo MTV Raps 2.0
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
in a way. It was,
Yeah.
a modern Yo MTV Raps, but just called Rap Basement, a more, relaxed, setting. Rap City, the
Mm-hmm.
basement. I mean, it was more relaxed, and it was more, like intimate, interviews. You really got to know, the rapper. You got to know, him as a person. And, at the end of the show, you got to see him spit a hot 16, a hot 24, however long that they let him go. I remember LL, basically sitting on the toilet, like not actually on the toilet, but sitting in the
Yeah.
toilet on the booth, sitting down rapping. Like, I don't think people understand how hard that is to sit down and rap. Most people like to stand up, have some type of with them, but
Yeah. That's
LL
that's a
was
big
one of
point.
the yeah.
That's
So
like
it
putting
was just a
anybody out of
lot
their
of
stuff.
them.
That's dude.
It was a
That's
lot of
insane.
dudes that influenced me. I like to see who could actually rap.
Yeah. And not kind of like at the time where, so that's why that's what it, one of the things I talked about a little bit with you, behind the cast, is that, this helps elevate that hip hop back, bring back that edge that it's supposed to have. Yeah, we could have, like I said, we could have all these girls talking about pop and pussy, but at the same time, a lot of people don't really, it turns off a lot of people. It's not on the mainstream. But what makes
It
the
needs
mainstream is a
balance.
battle. Yes.
See, in the early days of hip hop, 80s, 90s, 2000s, it was balanced. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? We needed the just as much as we needed, fuck the police, we needed parents
Yes.
just don't understand.
Yes, and that's
We
that's
needed
the
we needed the even though we needed fuck police, we needed the self-destruction.
yes,
It was all about balance. We needed to fight the powers just as much as we needed the, me so hornies,
yes,
you
yes.
know,
You needed the
and
South, you needed the West, you needed the East. They all
balance.
needed each other. They couldn't sound alike, and that's what's going on with all these collabs. They're trying to all sound alike, and it don't. It turns me off because, and it's turning off a lot of other people because we want to be, like you said, look for that balance. We want to be able to go to this genre and expect this, a more laid back song that I want to ride in my car. I don't want to be trying to dance in my car when I'm trying to ride down the street. That just means I want to race. I don't want to race.
Hip hop don't need to sound the same because everybody ain't the same.
Exactly.
If
Fucking right.
you if you tapped into where you're from and your creativeness, that can make you unique all on its own. You don't gotta sound like the next man. You don't gotta
Mm-hmm.
sound like the next region. I mean, it's cool to embrace them,
Yeah.
whatever region or whatever side, but embrace yourself, embrace your individuality. And that's why I'm always keep saying that hip hop needed balance. And with this battle, it gave it. a little balance to let people know that it's still one of the battling is still one of the main elements of hip hop when what hip hop was created off of. And I'm gonna say it again, it also showed that a battle could have a good end story to it.
Yep.
Nobody getting hurt, nobody, just partaking in the dumb stuff that we know
Yeah.
where it could lead to.
Like what we're hearing about with a lot of the Atlanta rap right now and stuff going on, that they're being investigated for a lot of these killings or offs or whatever you want to call them, these hits made, and they're explaining it through their music, and so now they're getting themselves dissected, and some of it's coming out true, so they're using their own music
That
against
ain't
them.
battling. That's just called getting yourself indicted.
Yeah, that's like writing a book and say, hey, I did this, and waiting for a few years for people to come along and be like, by the way, there was a few receipts we checked and this kind of all checks out. And you're like, you got me. It's like,
see,
who does that anyway?
Our rappers rapped about stuff that they did, they seen, and got away with. These rappers are talking about stuff that they're gonna do tomorrow.
Yep. That's actually what you just said right there. It brings it back to one of the first songs that I ever discovered Spice One about, and it led me down that thing when he goes, "It's 2 a.m. cooking keys in the kitchen," and then he goes, "Here comes the pigs banging at my door," screaming something about that 5.0. He said, you got to get out, you got to toss everything in dirt, you just got to go, and it just, to me, that's what really started with me when you talk about styles. I didn't know that I was going to fall in love with Spice One. What really got me when I heard that radio edit of Dumping Them in Ditches, I was like, okay, the stutter rap is really what got me, because he was taking out all the swear words, and he did that for a few of his other songs. 1996, he did that for, of course, Jealous, Strap on the Side. He had to, because it's just kind of a brutal song at some times, which I think also brings up another balance thing too, that I think that going into this battle, I had brought up the fact that I think Drake went a little more hardcore, more street, whereas Kendrick took a lyrical approach to it. And when I first went and I got when I first got that tape, because my buddy had the Spice One, Dumping Them in Ditches, bless you, by the way, and he had it to me, and I got the non-radio edit, and I put that in, and my jaw hit the damn ground. I couldn't believe the fucking shit I was hearing, dude. And it just, some of the shit, the last verse when he goes, "My chrome gat shines like a sword, one motherfucker hauled off to the morgue." I was like, woo! I mean,
I'll put it to you like this, right? Drake, he tried to take a gangster approach about it. You know what I'm saying? He tried to, you could say, puff his chest out a little bit. He tried to get a little bit more aggressive on the tracks. Whereas Kendrick started off, if you look at every diss song, he started off basically calm and mellow, and then there's parts where he switched and changed up his voice. You could tell, with the Lil Wayne and the Eminem influence in him, switching up his voice through the songs, and that's when he got aggressive. But the thing about Kendrick, whether if he was on the even tone, but still dissing them, or the aggressive tone is still dissing them, the lyrical approach about everything stayed the same.
Yeah.
He was more consistent in the lyrical approach and how he was able to break it down, and even still to this day got fans like me and other people that I know that's still breaking down the diss songs and still catching it. And then when we're catching certain parts, it's just like,
oh yeah, like, I mean, there's
when you got something that'll make you think, something that goes over most people's head, but it sticks to you and it makes you think, and it's like, yo, that's what he meant. Now it makes you look at the song different when you're like, oh, that's what he meant. Like, wow. Then if you really break down the lyrics and the songs and everything, anybody with a brain and anybody that understands rap will clearly say that Kendrick won. No shade at Drake. He did. No. He definitely he went down swinging.
He did. I mean, I don't know how hard. I mean, I know there's some hard Canadians out there, but he did. He probably did the best, hardest Canadian I've probably ever seen. Other than some rock band we don't know about that eats glass with their teeth during a freaking show.
Until I see anything different, he's the king of Canada.
yeah. So there's no he doesn't lose. And the thing is that nobody loses from this. It like we were saying, it helps elevate that hip hop, that element, that battle rap. Because I'm gonna just reiterate it again. Rap has always had its roots in battle rap. It's gone
It's
back to when we
competitive.
were kids, when we ripped on each other. Everybody remembers,
Exactly.
the back of your mom's neck looks like a pack of hot dogs. Look, when that shit dropped on, what was it, Living Color or whatever that first time? And I'm just like,
Yeah.
what?
And
It
snaps
just,
and stuff.
yeah,
That's why it's always, and I'm gonna keep saying rap is competitive. It's just like in any other sport that you can name. You always want to see the best two go at it. That's why you have in the Super Bowl, you have one side representing the NFC, one
mm-hmm.
side representing the AFC, and
Yep,
they gonna go at it to see who's the big dog of the
right,
league. Same thing in the NBA, Eastern
mm-hmm.
and Western. Anytime that there's competition involved, us as Americans, not just sports lovers,
Yeah,
us as Americans, because America thrives off competition. We want to see competition,
that's
and
right.
all competition don't gotta end bad. It's just in us as people. We want to see, okay, well, if you saying you the best and he's saying he the best, it's only what? One way to prove it.
Exactly. And that's why, and that's the funniest thing. I try not to like regress to myself, but I'll mention K Slade, rest his soul. He had Locksmith on all the time trying to bring it out. And you have rappers like Lock that try to just keep it low, stay away, try to just make their money where they can, and that's all they ever want. And they have opportunity to go, but they don't do it. Something keeps them out of it. But you have people like Kendrick Lamar, Drake, and everybody thrusting themselves in, regardless of accusations that'll be made or things they may do wrong. Nobody's perfect in this world, but at the same times, you hold up to those stats. And when you hear some of these disses and how like Kendrick went after a lot of Drake's fans and a lot of things that Drake's has had conspiracies about, it, like you said, makes you think, makes you go a little deeper, makes you go back to like, man, that's pretty cool. How's Drake gonna come back after that? Because man, if he's saying he doing this with Millie Billy Bobby Brown and then all this shit, and then now you're not, and you're like, all right, well, you can't just let somebody just say that about you without coming back,
Yeah,
right?
it's that, and that just shows like what I heard a long time ago. Pen is mightier than the sword.
That's, I mean, that was written when the sword, when lands were won with swords and arrows, like literally.
Yeah,
you know and that just going back to the diplomats and the way that some of these people have controlled themselves. So I mean, I think that this, and it seems like we just totally agree with this, that this is a great thing for hip hop. They have brought it
definitely.
back to the front floor. They have brought it back down to earth. And man, just this overall just is going to open up so much more. And maybe it can finally get that balance that you were talking about back to where it's
That's
just
much
not all
needed.
about. I mean, I mean, how many
These
karate
two,
chops do
they
you
don't
need, right?
know it. They don't know it. Kendrick Lamar and Drake, they don't know it, but they actually opened up a newer, different era.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
even though it's a new era and a different era, it can still look to the old era about how to do things moving forward.
Yep.
And as two people in their prime, as they is Kendrick Lamar and Drake, for them to do this for hip hop reasons and for basically, personal reasons,
Mm-hmm.
egos involved, yeah, but they still went about it the right way. And
They
that's what's
did.
always good about it. And it's like, and I'll throw this over, to a wrestling comparison. It was like Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, basically.
Mm-hmm.
The two best guys, people wanted to see who was going to win,
Yep.
and they was hyped about it. You can
Mm-hmm.
compare that to this. Anytime you got the two biggest stars of any era,
Yep.
people gonna want to see it.
That's right. That's right. And that's what we got back in the day when we had East versus West. It was Biggie versus Pac. And like you said, when Jay-Z and Nas decided to come out, I mean, and those dudes were kind of like boys, but I know there's always beef, and for me, like I know Jay-Z he has an entire empire. But for me, I was kind of a Nas fan just because Nas wasn't as big. Nas wasn't that. That's just more my style. Like that's it. And just the way I like it. But I have no disrespect for either one of those rappers. Both those rappers know how to lay it down. They are definitely bosses in the game. And man, I mean, I ain't got nothing bad to say about
Even
them.
even with a loss, I still don't think that this is going to hurt Drake's career. I
No,
don't
no,
think
no,
he's
no,
done. I don't think he's finished. It's
no.
just, it's just win or loss is still a feather in this cap. Even though
Yes.
people going to remember that, he lost this battle, but it's still going to take people back to when the battle happened. I'm telling you, like 5, 10 years from now, people really gonna be talking about this battle and remember where they was and how they was
Mm-hmm.
feeling when they first heard certain records and stuff like that. It's got that type of impact. And
That's right.
even in the loss, you could still get respect because it wasn't like he just went down like just
Yeah.
he
He
went
lost
down swinging.
strong.
He wanted to, as a man, and his ego was involved. He wanted, to piss on the dirt and claim his territory too, as he
Mm-hmm.
should.
That's right.
As a giant, as a rapper, and being one of the best of your generation is
Mm-hmm.
something that you got to do. But
Yeah.
also, what people need to understand is, Kendrick Lamar comes from Aftermath, and them boys is battle tested. Eminem, 50 Cent. So
Yeah, that's why I said it. You know, when you go back to that, the battle rapping, and you get that, and we talked about a lot of things. Man, we might have to do the blunt trauma as an extra little section after this because I want to fill this out. We're down to like the final 6 minutes here, so I think I'm gonna have to add in the blunt trauma at the end of this. So you're gonna have to pop back on, brother, because we got to end the top five. But right now, we're gonna end this part of the show. If that's cool, can you do that right now, or do you want to
oh
do you
yeah,
want to be
definitely. We definitely can.
yeah. Because I want to get that blunt trauma in there, but that can just be its own little separate thing. We'll just throw that. So we're gonna end this up right here, but not end it. We got 6 minutes left. So um, so overall, we both just agree that Kendrick won and that everything
Yeah, definitely.
that the dissection of the fans, the bold words, giving Drake that chance to give him up. Go against somebody that's like that. Because, like you said, Drake probably may have did battle raps in the past, but at the same time, he wasn't tested like Kendrick has been his entire life.
This is one of the first few times that Drake has, besides Pusha T, has actually said somebody's name.
Yeah.
There's a difference between speaking subliminally and then having the fans wonder, oh, who is he talking about? And then there's when you actually say that person's name, it's like the fans don't gotta wonder if he's talking about this person. It's like, oh, he said his name, so we know who he's talking about.
Yep, exactly. And that's like that's I go back to Tupac and stuff and how this started out and how like Kendrick you said was started out soft and kind of explaining stuff and how Tupac just straight came out and was like that's why I fucked your bitch. Like
Yeah, straight aggression. Whereas Kendrick took a different approach, but
yeah.
it was still aggression in his own way. He let his pen do most of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
talking
He
and
wasn't
do
letting
most of
those
the
dancing
dissecting.
memes do it. Dude, that
Yeah,
was
he let his pen dissect everything.
dude, that's crazy. And I mean, that's what I love about rap. That's what really got me. Like I said, when I was growing up and I went through my New Jack Swing phase and Bobby Brown starting to rap, and then going into those kind of areas, that's kind of what started pulling me. Of course, Will Smith at the time, Fresh Prince at the time. We'll definitely get a little talk on that on the blunt trauma part of the show because that's gonna be some banging going on right there. But I mean, we go kick it up on that because I mean, just for everybody knowing that this podcast is going to get added on to that other podcast, but the blunt trauma is going to be our top 5 hip hop rappers inspirations. So it's going to be the people that we grew up to. We list a million miles, hours, days, weeks. I remember not taking CDs out of my CD deck in my car for months. That's
Yeah.
insane, bro. Insane coverage, man. And that's what we're about to hit it up with that. But man, we still got some time on this to talk. So final thoughts. What do you think, man?
Final thoughts is, like I said, I like where the hip hop is going.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was at, kind of had me shaky a little bit, but I
Yeah.
think it's back on, an even playing field. Just like with the NBA playoffs, I think everything is wide open. It's on the
Mm-hmm.
even playing field. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yep, that's right.
So anytime you got good balance and unpredictability,
Yeah,
it's always good in sports.
yeah.
At least
And
I always thought that. Anytime, because sometimes stuff can become when they start being predictable, it start getting boring.
yeah, yeah.
But when it's unpredictable, it's like it make you want to keep watching and keep tuning in and keep analyzing it. And this is my passion and this is what I love to do. So, I'm gonna keep doing it as long as they let me keep doing it.
Dude, you bring it up. And I mean, that's why when you say that you need that balance, that's practically why Caitlin Clark and Angela Reese right now are like literally number one tabloid stuff going on right now. If the WNBA is to succeed, they needed a Magic slash Bird, a Michael slash Bird, a Magic versus Michael. They needed that. And they saw this. They're like, wait, yo, these girls is playing each other for these championships every single year, and they're slapping this one out, and this one's the best shooter. And now all of a sudden we got all this melee stuff going on, and they love it. But people are biting it up. Look, I'm anticipating when they're going to play each other in WNBA. Man, I just
The
like it's
WNBA needs to capitalize on
yeah,
this right about now. They need to start striking deals. And but one of the main things that the WNBA needs to have as a supporter is the
mm-hmm.
key word in WNBA. What does the W stand for? Women. They
Yes,
need more women support. How come, these women products or whatever can't endorse them or sponsorship? How come they
yeah,
can't have WNBA on Lifetime Network or,
yeah.
We TV
They said
or
that
something like that?
that's where it would
It,
go. The Lifetime Network, Hallmark, put it on there.
it needs to something needs to happen.
Where's
They need to
Maybelline?
take
Where's
yeah,
Maybelline? Where's
you can't
Fructis?
expect
Garnier?
us to support a league when the people that play in it that represented women kind of don't support it. There's probably more women that can name 10 past or present NBA players than they can name of WNBA players.
I mean, I would start at Lisa Leslie, and then because Michaela McBride or Kayla McBride from Erie, that's
Yeah,
two, and that's like 30 years apart right now. We're talking, and of course,
and you see, and that's one of the problems. Not saying with you, but if you ask
yep,
most of these women, they can name 10 basketball players past the present off the top of their head, but not with the WNBA. So I'm gonna
that's right,
always say that if the WNBA is going to succeed and thrive, they need more support from women.
that's right. All right, brother, let's get into round two. It's gonna be fight. It's time for blunt trauma.
Blunt,
And we're talking about blunt trauma.
blunt trauma.
What's going on? I
Watch your
don't know
head.
what to name it anyway. Did you like it? Do you like the blunt trauma name? We can revise it at some point.
No, I like the play on words. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it all makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Especially when me and you do our wrestling thing down the line. I'll show you my different wrestling names. Sometimes I'm Tay Wyatt, Tay Mysterio,
Uh-oh.
shit like that.
You got some things. I used to call my dad. So growing up, funny story. My dad used to call himself the Bulk Hogan, and then he would
Bulk
say
Hogan.
he bulk because his name's Bob, and he would call it Bulkamania, and he would do the Iron Claw, and it never felt great, not at
You
all.
gotta believe. You gotta believe in it. Or ain't nobody else gonna believe in your aliases.
Yeah, you gotta believe in it, man. I mean, we used to do little fake wrestling back in the day, and I was starting to call myself the Iron Dragon because I was so thrilled by the Iron Dragon ride at Cedar Point that no longer exists anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like that. But I don't know, drama with the blood splatter back there works, man. We got the blunt. It's just great, man. I love it,
Yeah,
man.
it's cool. I
Woo!
like it. We're gonna keep it going
That's what we
because we
do.
hitting them in the head with what we got. So yeah, blunt trauma.
That knowledge. It doesn't always have to be a blunt object or anything like that to make some trauma. We can make it through the
Exactly.
drama. That's what we do.
Exactly. Stimulate that brain
Yeah, because we ain't gonna refrain. Happy all
at
day to
all.
the mamas. Woo! Let's go. Top five musical lyrics, rapists, just influences. So we did a little bit of it. We hit it on the previous podcast. We threw in five, so we have definitely a lot more minutes now to talk a little bit about what we want to do. I'm just gonna rail my five, and then from there we're gonna play into it from there because I've already done my five and everything. I've talked about them 1,000 times on my podcast. So
Yeah.
that being said, I mean, of course, number one's always going to be Spice One, kind of that influence that really got me into where rap was storytelling. I mean, when I was growing up, it was just Mama Said Knock You Out. You had, Run DMC, My Adidas, everything like that. Everything just worked together. And like I talked about with DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, that was huge for me. We didn't find DJ Magic Mike until it. So I'll hit it right up. Spice One, it's Tupac, Locksmith, Method Man, and DJ Magic Mike. DJ Magic Mike will not be on anybody's tops list, but it wasn't just about like how lyrically he puts it together. In a lot of his songs, when he's going with the beats that he makes, because he's the producer, it always has elevated me, elevated my mind. And when I was talking to you last night about music elevating and changing you, it's why nowadays that I will listen to Locksmith before I would listen to Spice One, because even though Spice One has changed, Spice One's trying to get all this new talent up. His music's changed in a way. He still sounds the same, but at this time, it's kind of like right now, Lock is where I want to be. I want that more lyrical approach to it. I want somebody to take me down that road, and that's what Magic's been doing, and Method's always done. So hit me up, man. Blunts on your end.
All right. Well, first off, I'm just influenced, by hip hop as a whole. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop is me. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop is one of the main inspirations behind, my show, the Very Blunt Sports Podcast. And hip hop is the driving thing, that drives the newbie and Blaze. So the culture as a whole, influences me, how I dress, how I walk, how I talk, how I approach things, you know what I'm saying, on camera, off camera.
Yes.
But I'm gonna throw it down to, my top five.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Start at number 5, thanks to my Uncle Mike, got me early, listening to Scarface.
Woo.
So yeah.
I never mind Scarface. Beautiful.
Just storytelling at a different level at its finest right there. Then, my number 4 spot gonna go to Nas. My number 3 spot gonna go to Jay-Z. I really like Jay-Z, and I just wanted to put that out there. I like him as a whole because of how he was able to evolve and progress throughout the years. And what he was able to bring, to hip hop, it shouldn't be slept on and taken for granted in all the contributions he did. Number 2, Biggie with just the flow. His flow was like the main thing that always got me. Like, it was kind of like he was like a jazz musician with the words, how he swayed back and forth like like somebody playing the horn, how he put, flow and emphasis, to the words. And number 1 for me always gonna be Tupac. Now, in my opinion, Tupac was a layer. He had different layers about him. He had different emotions and different sides that he could show you. It wasn't about him trying to act gangster or act this way or act that way. He was just showing us that it was cool to be a normal human being. Sometimes you don't feel, militant today. Sometimes you feel like, you just want to beat somebody the hell up. Sometimes, one day you might, feel like saying, keep your head up, to all, women. And then the next day you might get your heart broken and say, fuck these bitches. You know what I'm saying? Tupac had different layers and he had different emotions about him. And plus he talked about worldly issues where most rappers, talked about what was going on their block, their corner, and, their neighborhood. He talked about what was going on in the world. Whereas if you even listen to some of his songs, where he's talking about these worldly issues and speaking on things, some of these things are still relevant to this day. I think if Tupac was alive and with everything, that's been going on as far as, the shooting unarmed black men and the politics of the world and everything going on, he would be more of a activist. I think he would have left that. He still would have had the gangster edge to him, that gangster persona, but he would have knew that what he had studied and how he was raised, his upbringing of being a child of a Black Panther, would have been more important in these times, in this age right now. So he definitely would have been a good activist with a voice. Imagine this. He's been going 30 years. And his voice still reigns supreme.
Dude, you could put changes on right now.
If he was still alive. If he was alive, the impact that he would have. Been dead 30 years and still have a global impact. That tells you a lot about that man.
it almost makes it like I don't even know if the last 30 years of rap would have been it would definitely not has been as big as it was if him and like Biggie were still alive, or either one of them was still alive, because I think that those still would have been the bosses. A lot of the people didn't step out the game like Common always did either. Common always would just take a back seat, and then you had, your Little Wayne era and stuff like that. I'm not sure the Little Wayne era would get much. I mean, Pac would have probably went after him. I mean, even
I
if you want to
think
go, okay, go on.
I honestly think some rappers would have still,
Oh yeah,
progressed and done big in the Big and Pac era if they were still around. What
yeah.
I think Big and Pac would have did for a lot of rappers is they both would have made them sharpen up they pen game and their approach.
There it goes again.
And
That's it.
and we're gonna bring that back to the battling. You need something. You need somebody, some type of inspiration that's gonna
Mm-hmm.
keep you going. Something, because after a while you could get stagnant and
Yeah.
just feeling like, well, since ain't nobody around, I
Mm-hmm.
could, basically lay back a little bit. That's like, if we gonna take it to a wrestling stance.
Okay.
Before AEW and TNA came around,
Mm-hmm.
when WWE beat WCW, they was just on a cruise control, basically saying, "Oh
Yep.
well, we could put out anything we want. We could put out any product we want because we the only show in town and people gonna watch it." But
That's
then when
right.
another show came in town and was like, "Nah, we doing it like this," then WWE had to sit up like, "Oh, we got to
Yeah.
step our game up." So that's why competition is needed.
Yeah. Well, TNA didn't, when they started out as Impact with the strippers in the cages suspended from the ceilings. I mean, what the hell? I mean, that's the way you get it. But WWE at that time could not do that because this is when they were going into that PG era. And
Right.
they're trying right now with Netflix. I think they're really trying to come out of that. And I think that that's why they've been giving us great glimpses of a little bit of more edge, a little more brutality without the blood, things are happening. Logan Paul just brought it up to Cody Rhodes that that he feels that he was the number one talked about from the 2023 Royal Rumble because he made that jump with you
Yeah.
whatever his name is, Ricochet. Yeah. So, when you go back and you
Yeah.
make that and you talk about people making those things. So that when I talk about like Spice One, people talk about his early storytelling and how in 187 he wrote that whole CD from front to back really is just one of those CDs that it tells a story the entire time. Like people don't even think about one of these songs but it's called Gas Chambers. It's literally like it's got one of the corniest beats, but the way he flows to it, and he comes straight out from the go, he's like chitty chitty bang bang, and I'm like, what? And it was so cool. It kind of got me. But even like Method Man, of course, when I heard him with the Wu Tang, and the first time that I ever heard the Wu Tang was the Mystery of Chess Boxing, and the way they
Yeah.
set up the video with chess, and I love chess. Do you love chess? I'm just throwing it out there.
I like the game and how it's played and how you're supposed to play it, but I never
Uh-huh.
had the patience to learn
Yeah, it takes a
it.
while, man. That's like one of those nights you get a couple beers and you just do some stuff and it's just like that. But yeah, get so that video and then kind of like, with me doing martial arts now, having over 250, 350 Mandarin films in my house, from Jet Li to Bruce Lee and everything, Jackie Chan, everybody in between, Tony Jaa. I ain't gonna leave out my guys, man. But with all that together, again, that goes back to where I couldn't just see Bruce Lee, I had to have Jet Li, I had to have all these Lung Kar Yan. I had to have Beardy, right? So I know that I just said a bunch of nonsense to you, but it has a little merit and a little craziness.
You know
But
what?
that's
And another thing too, I gotta throw out,
yeah, throw it in there,
one of
dude.
my other influences, one of my other influence too was all the publications of hip hop, but mainly the Source magazine.
The
And it's crazy
source.
that you bring up Spice One because my uncles used to have all the Source magazines every
Yeah.
month, come to the house or go to the newsstand. And one of the Source magazines that I really remember, and you could look this up too, on the cover, it was MC8, Spice One, and Scarface. There was in
Yes.
some type of 6'4". You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? And it
Yeah.
was from the '90s or whatever. But I was anything hip hop wise that I could get my hands on and read. I was with that. You know what I'm saying? From my
Yeah.
uncles, reading, the Jet
Mm-hmm.
magazines to Write On to Word Up, and then be me being introduced to the Source. Actually, the first Source magazine that I actually read and just didn't skim through looking at the pictures. It was Tupac on the cover and it said Tupac free. It was
Oh
basically when he
yeah, I
first got
remember
out of
that one.
jail. And so I've been a fan of the Source ever since. That was like 95, 96, and
Yep.
Double XL. And I used to read Scratch Magazine and some of the
Okay.
one-off,
Yeah, yeah.
magazines and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
the Source and Double XL and all of that stuff, that
Those are
was our
tops.
social media
Yeah,
before
that's goes
social
back.
media.
We didn't go
Because whoever was
online.
on the cover of the Source, it was like you got that magazine cover because of who was on the Source, and it
Yep.
made you go in and look at what was the rhyme of the month, who had the best rhyme, and the mic rating. Everybody
Yep.
wanted to see what albums, because if you got basically a 4 and up, that was saying it was legit.
Yes. And
So
you
we definitely gotta, shout outs to the publications, because like I
yep.
said, that was our social media before social media.
And we had
Them
to get that
was
monthly.
viral pictures before viral was even something.
Yep. And then we couldn't go online for video game cheats. You had to ask your friends, or you had to wait till that new Nintendo Power EGM or Game Pro came out because you weren't going to get that. This was the same with rap, is you didn't know what was going on in the rap game. We couldn't just go online and be like, hey, what's Jay-Z doing today? Or,
You
what's
had to
Luke
read
doing
it.
right now?
You had to read it. Quick
Yeah.
story, real quick, man. I remember
Yeah.
I tried to get my mom to buy me one of them code books for WWF Warzone.
Oh,
Man, she picked it up at Quality Market over there on 6th Street. She picked it up and saw the price at it. She laughed and put it back. So that was her basically saying, nah, you ain't
uh,
getting this.
you know what I
I had
used
to
to do?
wait till I started getting my own money.
Yeah. They made us mow some lawns for that. Or you had to wait for that. They give you a little money for the book thing at school, the book fair, and they would have
Oh,
some
yeah.
video game ones. That's how I got mine. I still got them. I still got
I
them. I
was
got
one of
codes
those
written in
kids
them.
that bought all the NFL pencils
Ah,
at the book
yeah,
fair. I was
yeah,
the kid that had all the NFL pencils, even if it wasn't my team. I had your
got it.
team, and then that's when my entrepreneurial mind came into play. I'm like, oh well, I got Houston Oilers pencils and Pittsburgh Steelers pencils. Give me $1. I was
Yeah,
selling
yeah, you
the
got it because you only got it was 25 cents. If you bought 10, you got 5 cents off each, something like that.
exactly.
They always had that little thing, like, and so like we got those cheat codes. So you bring up those things. I gotta say this one thing that I quote that I read. It said at the time that when Spice One came out, that there was only that the time that this thing out this reading that I was reading going on. He goes, the only three albums that ever got a 5 from the Source at the time was America's Nightmare, was of course The Chronic, and the Marshall Mathers LP. I think that's the first Eminem one.
They
Sorry, I'm not.
actually, with the 3 albums that you had named, they wasn't given the original 5 mic rating, but
Mm-hmm.
when they went back and remiked a whole lot of albums,
I did
and
see
they
they did that.
saw, yeah, and they saw that it was some albums, over the test of time was considered classics.
Yep.
Me personally, I think the Marshall Mathers LP should have got higher than what it had got. But
Mm-hmm.
at the time, if you know the history with Benzino and Eminem or whatever, but
Yeah.
one of the albums I got to throw out there that they did is one of my biggest what ifs, and it's one of my what ifs in hip hop is the DOC. No one could do it better.
I remember that. I remember the
If
DOC and
anybody
hearing
could
about that.
go to the people that's listening, if you want to know something about hip hop and one of the biggest what ifs and one of the best wordsmiths that we had, and go listen to the DOC.
Dude, not enough credit
What,
goes to the DOC, man. You're correct. He's almost like in a world like Tech Nine, where everybody just knows he's great, but they still just disregard him, and you
See
can't
the
disregard that greatness.
difference. The difference is DOC had lost his voice in that car accident.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Crushed
Yeah,
his larynx or whatever. And
yeah,
with somebody like Tech Nine don't necessarily need mainstream because he's rich as hell off of
yeah,
what he does. So at
yeah.
this point in his life, he don't need mainstream
No,
nothing.
no, he doesn't need
He's
it.
good.
Yeah,
He's good.
he's set for a very long time. Like he was probably set on
Real
that
long
Madden
time.
when he
If you
made the
know, you
beast for
know.
Madden. That was it.
If
Because that's all I
you know,
remember
you
from that.
know.
Yeah,
He's set.
yeah. Intangible burst, dude. That song is just like so good, and then you just get so much out of him. But even when he released that not I don't think I think he's released that was the second one where the God song where he's like, I am a God. I was like, oh, dude, it just sounded
he
so good.
he does whatever he wants because he's just one of those artists that could get away with that.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, we talk a little bit about like Scarface, and you know, a lot of times when I would talk about, you know, hearing stories, a lot of people talk about Scarface and the stories that he was able to tell. Also, when you go to style, having that deep voice, and he was deeper than Chuck D. A lot of people back then, you know, like it was like Chuck D had that straight voice, but man, Scarface had a deep voice, and he came off strong, and it was hard, and it was straight to the end of it. Again, that was his style that he had. So to hear somebody talk about Scarface and to bring up his storytelling and to do that just shows wonder how many different times and just different kind of genres we come from. Because when we're talking East, West, and I go South and I bring up DJ Magic Mike, even he made like around 93, 94, he made a total gangster rap album called Represent, where he went after his old rapper called MC Madness, because Madness and him kind of broke up. So the Madness went and made this bunk ass CD, which, you know, there was like one good song on there. And then the cover was pretty cool because they had three chicks turned around with their asses booty sticking up. And I was like, well, you know, as a teenage boy, I had never seen that much ass on the front of a CD. So I had to look at it for a few moments. You know, that goes back
Kind
to
of
my
like a Two Live Crew cover.
yeah. This one was a little more thing because like there was just a whole bunch of those Two Live Crew covers, right? But these three girls was right there. And I was like, so me and my friends was looking, we're like, all right, which one? Because they were all three different sizes. He was like, which one? We rate them. So we would rate them. And it just was like one of those things, even going back to when I brought up with Super Sexy Swinging Sounds with White Zombie, when he just throwing on like just practically naked chicks on the front of CDs. It's like, yeah, how did I buy this? I was not old enough to, why do I have this porn on me? But I loved it. I was like, yeah. And that's what I'm talking about. So Magic, when he went after him, dude, he even made a whole skit over a phone call. So Madness, his brother, was kind of slow. And I don't think Magic probably doesn't feel good about this, but you know, because Madness is gone now, rest his soul. And he called it up and he was like, he called him up and they did the whole thing and he was like, hello, hello. And they made him all sound dumb and retarded. And sorry about that word and using it, but that's what they made him sound like. And they did it, but he doesn't like that CD because where he was at his point in his life, this is kind of the point he was having problems. And then after this is where him and his now wife Q have flourished from this whole time and he's came out of it. So, you know, during that time when I had faced the Final Frontier, when we had Don't Talk, Just Listen, and then eventually Represent during that time, that was the years that I was listening to Spice One, that the Wu-Tang started coming out as well, that I first found Redman, Time for Some Action, and just that whole time period, 93, 94. Damn. Tell me about
That
it, bro.
was honestly, I can honestly say about Erie growing up as far as like the hip hop scene, the people that I was around, the older people that I was around, they was listening to a little bit of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Just to have their hand, because if you look at it like in the 80s and early 90s, you was just happy to get your hands on hip hop. It
Yeah.
didn't really matter what region it came from. You was just happy to get your hands on hip hop. And my uncle was the one that got me into Scarface. He always had, you know, Scarface. He had the Ghetto
Mm-hmm.
Boys, you know what I'm saying, and
Yeah.
all of them. And that's how I
Sweet
knew
Bill.
what Rap a Lot and all of that stuff was. I was actually one of those people that liked opening up the CD booklet
Mm-hmm.
and reading, you know, who produced it and
Yeah.
what samples they got it from and things like that. I was just always looking and studying and
Yep.
just whatever, you know, hip hop was, that's what I got into. And so that's why I say, you know, with my show,
Yeah.
it's a marriage between sports and hip hop
Yeah.
because they both fit together. And I just show different ways on the show and on the page on how they come together. You know what I'm saying? I
Mm-hmm.
told myself a long time ago, I'm like, I ain't really necessarily had the discipline growing up to play sports because I was in all types of other stuff.
Yeah.
And I couldn't necessarily, you know, rap or be a musician, but I said I could talk that shit about both of them.
Yeah, and when you
You
bring
know?
up going into that the booklets, that's where someone like myself and yeah, I could blame it on my ADHD or whatnot. Dude, I did it with my video games too. I never opened that up. So when I've talked to you about the VGM community and stuff like that, these guys are naming off and saying correctly their names, whether they're from Sweden or Japan, they say their name perfectly. I'm over here. I'll suffer with Nabil. I'm not even going to try right now. I ain't even in that mode. This
Yeah.
is what I'm talking about. They can spit it out. So, like, even when I talk about the Pod of Thunder and how they talk about like Bob Ezra and a lot of big, huge record producers that produced a lot of these heavy rock CDs or albums from the 70s and 80s and through on to now, and even some before then, you went in, you opened that book and you read it all. You opened the whole horizon where somebody like myself, which is why I love that, we're doing these shows together and showing that, you can have great music from no matter what. But more like an ostrich, I stuck my head in the hole, was like, yep, I'm just going to be in locksmith's hole for about 20 years now. Pull that back out, go, okay, now let me just stick my head back down here again. But it's again going back to the rap battle that we were talking about that made me actually listen to this. And then I got my daughter making fun of me because she already listened to all the damn songs. And she's like telling me all the things about it. And she's like, do you need a coaching? And I was like, no, I went and listened to the songs. And the wife's like, yeah, he did. And I'm like, all right, so coach.
See, one of the things that, always keep me, sharp and always keep me up to date about things. See, when people get into, journalism or podcasting and they feel like they made it, they also got this aura that they feel that they know it all. And
yeah.
I don't ever want to come off as that, because most important when it comes, to this sports and when it comes to this hip hop thing and how I merge and how I do it, for my show,
yep,
I'm always be a student of the game.
Yep.
I'm always want to learn. I'm always want to know what's going on. I'm always want to, evolve, because it's like, that's what, we got to do, because
that's right.
Stuff is always happening. Stuff is always changing. And I tell, my main audience this: before I chose any of my teams, basketball, football, baseball, whatever, I chose to love that sport first. So I owe it to that sport to commentate on that sport. You know me, I'm a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. We went through that, but I owe it to the sport that if they doing something wrong, I gotta talk about it.
That's
just
why.
like I'm a Cowboys fan and I don't like the Eagles, but if the Eagles is doing something good, I got to put my fandom to the side and put my student of the game first and talk about it. That's the difference.
And that's you hear it talked about in betting in DFS. If you're a homer and you bet as a homer on either DFS or you're betting, you might get it right just a few times, but most of the time, and this goes with fantasy football, drafting strategies, dynasty, you're not going to do well. And you have to put that aside and you have to bring it in. And that's when, putting that aside and being able to listen to all these different rappers, explore new music, or go to a place like Bandcamp and just go to the top, like I go there a lot for a lot of my electronic music. And I go there and I just go, what's new? And I listened to a few songs. And when I did this show, I called it Bring the Music, and I would do it live on Twitch. I was going there and I was buying these songs. I would buy 5 songs a week, and then I would throw in 3 other songs and make it an 8-song, show. And I was just trying to highlight new people. And then a few of the DJ people that, that I watch, his name's actually DJ Hype. We call him, his name's Jay. He actually grabbed a couple of those songs. He was like, he, and he's particular about his show. He calls it Club Unity. So he has a certain style, but he pulled this one song, Everyday Breaks, out of it because he prides his show on breaks. And so for him, and music is just, if you stick in one lane or you keep your head in the hole and you don't pull your head out, that's when the problem becomes you, and not just trying to broaden your horizons and try to do it, because it goes back, we're pulling all these old school terms out today. It'll go back. If you're not learning something new every day, then you're not learning.
Right. And that's the thing. You got to keep yourself, progressing. You got to keep yourself, moving forward, especially in the field that we in. We got to come up with different ways to grab new viewers as we still got to keep our hardcore, fan base with it too, without necessarily compromising, ourselves. Because one thing we got to understand about, the sports casting world is I think it's kind of harder to get more, fans engaged and involved, because we ain't necessarily doing the messy stuff, no shots at other people, but we ain't doing the Wendy Williams gossiping, drama,
Yeah.
stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Even
we're
though sports stories do happen in our
mhm.
field and we got to report on them. And I'm blunt about, basically my approach and my
Yeah.
everything. But there's a difference between being blunt and then there's a difference between, gossiping.
Yeah, and so to bring that up, this actually will bring up the whole Rasheed Rice thing going on right now. Like, bro, you just got caught in a big high speed race. You freaking dipped for a few days, no one could find you, and then now you're supposedly texting a photographer to come back to punch him in the face. I mean, first of all, who does that? I mean, like just hey, come back here and then pops it. So there's got to be some. I want to see some validity to a lot of this stuff and stuff like that. But like that's something that where people will go, well, it's getting a little dicey. Where somebody is like, yo, something's freaking wrong here. What is going on? Why is Rasheed Rice all of a sudden getting himself caught up in all this drama? And yes, it could be
Yeah.
part of the Super Bowl, but man, that's what's going on, man.
And see, when our approach about that is we coming at it as we trying to figure out what's going on. We trying
Yeah,
to figure out why it happened. And we trying to figure out, last but not least, we trying to figure out, dude, what the hell is on your mind?
yeah.
That's where
Sports
we
guys ain't gonna
coming
do
at
that.
it. We ain't coming at it as and just trying to get a story by adding extra spice to it by saying extra things that we think gonna make people watch or more. I feel like when you add extra spice and you lying and stuff like
Yeah,
that, and then when it comes back, because we living in the world where people could backtrack and backcheck,
of
and then
course.
when it comes back that you lied about XYZ, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
shoots your credibility
Yeah,
in this in reporting anything. And one thing that I take pride on is my credibility. I
yeah.
want people to know that if the story is true, I'm reporting it and saying
Yep.
it because it's true. If I'm going to exaggerate on the story, then
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to exaggerate, but I'm going to put it in a way where you know that I'm exaggerating about it, where
Exactly.
you can still where you don't question my credibility. It's kind
Exactly.
of like some people look to be the national choir in the Star magazines. Remember that back in the
Oh
day?
no, I used to
what,
buy those all the time at
what
Bigfoot
my
Bound
granddad used to
Unfrozen.
call toilet trash.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, but that's the when I do my skit things that make me a jerk, that's I always put a disclaimer that this is just done as a comedy satire. That this is just
Exactly.
this is not supposed to this does not mean that I don't know what the top 5 IDP linebackers are right now. This doesn't have anything to do with that. That doesn't mean I go into a
Your
show.
fans know you.
Yeah,
Your fans know
exactly.
you, and they know when you're being, for real. They know when you're being, sarcastic. They know when you're exaggerating because
Yep.
you built that rapport with them. And when you have a good rapport with your fan base, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's better than clout chasing because then people would be like, "Nah, you got to listen to Tay or you got to listen to Rob because
Yeah.
they authentic, they real
Yeah.
with it. They, you know what I'm saying? Whereas it'd be like, oh, this person is only saying this because they looking for clickbait or
Yep.
whatever. I don't never want to be that type of person,
No, me
clout
either.
chasing or just doing the story because then I feel like one of them sleazy ass reporters,
Yeah.
from back in the day, just trying to catch a glimpse and
I
sell
mean,
these pictures for $500 or
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
they was getting it off on. You know what I'm saying? I
I know
take
what you're
pride in
saying.
not being a clout chaser.
I won't lie though. I did mention Taylor Swift a few times on those Super Bowl leading up podcasts going on. I mean, go clickbait that or whatever, but it just gives you that. But yeah, this whole thing going back to show the inspirations and going back to the teams and what it really inspires both of our shows. Because again, as we talked about on our last podcast together, that my skit started out as 60 seconds, but nobody else on SiriusXM was doing that. That's what made it different. Because when
Yeah,
Doc and Tommy were together, they were edgy. And when we started that war with the morning people, that's what I didn't really mention that too much. And this is just roll through it real quick. But when we had this crazy night happen, I was driving to work the next day and my boys started playing one of my clips for me and the guys talking. And I'm like, wait a minute. So one of the producers recorded what we were saying and then played it back for the morning guys. And it started this war kind of. And that's what made the
that's some
stout arc.
sleaze bag shit.
That is some well, all those dudes ended up getting off of the radio because we started calling them dinosaurs, but that's was the old school sport writer mentality. They weren't ready for
Yeah,
fantasy football or betting. They were just stuck in that old, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. And that's where it all kind of did. So that's where it did. But I built on that, and I built on it because I would call in and I would talk shit after midnight on Sirius XM radio about a player that performed poorly or was in a good shape.
As you should.
Yeah, you should call people out. Like when you see all these people like just calling out LeBron, how LeBron should be taken into account for all these coaches being fired under him.
Have more accountability.
Yeah. Like, dude,
my thing is like this. What people got to understand is one thing about me, and I know I could speak for you about this. When we're talking about these players, we only talking about what they do on the court or on the field from what we see. We ain't coming at them from a personal stance or anything like that. We just saying what we saw, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if you had, even if you my favorite player, like if Michael Jordan was still playing, which is one of my favorite players, the GOAT. He's my GOAT in my opinion.
I love Kobe, but it's still Jordan.
Now, if Mike was playing and he had a bad game, I'm gonna say he had a bad game, regardless of him being my favorite player or not. I'm gonna say he had a bad game, but we ain't attacking you personally. That's what a lot of these athletes need to understand. We ain't talking about if you creeping on your woman or outside children or whatever. No, we leave that to E and all of them other people. We only concerned about what you do on the court and on the field. You know what I'm saying? So if you had a bad game and you had a bad game, don't get mad at us for reporting that you had a bad game, especially if you got on that podium and said yourself you had a bad game.
This goes back to when, people, go back to the series. It was the Celtics that Gasol practically won that series for us, but Kobe he did not have a good series, and a lot of people took that up. But that Celtics defense was strong. Rondo was all over him. Pierce was down there too. They had that team put together really nice to where they could stop Kobe, but they just could not make that they couldn't cover Gasol. And Gasol, even though Kobe and everybody got it together at the end, they couldn't cover those other intangibles. So a lot of people will say Kobe sucked, but the Lakers still won, and that's because they had a great team around them. And I'm pretty sure if Kobe was still alive, he would say he sucked in that series too. Maybe.
I think he would say he had a couple of off games or whatever, but I don't think, he would say that, he sucked.
Not the whole time.
No.
I think
but what people got to understand is that's the nucleus of a good team.
Yep.
When one thing, if your jumper is off, then you go to, taking it straight to the rack. When something is off as a team, you got to be able to evolve and think of and come up with different ways and different scenarios to win if one thing isn't working. And that's so the best team is always going to beat the best player.
That's
always.
Right.
It's a team sport and a team effort at the end of the day. And I will say this, do people sometimes criticize LeBron unfairly? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
I'll say that.
At the same time, nobody is bashing LeBron. All we saying is if LeBron as a leader took more accountability, I think that would make the other dudes also look at themselves too, because it could strike as, well, if the main guy, the top dog, is coming down on himself and saying that he needs to be better and he's showing that he's trying to get better, that could light a fuse and light a fire up under everybody else's ass. So all they're saying is they ain't saying they want LeBron to be like, yeah, it's solely my fault that we lost it. No, they saying you as a leader, as a representation of this team, if you took more accountability into it, they'll follow your lead.
Yep. And that's what I think sometimes, like, is LeBron a true leader? I think he is a leader, but I think it's sometimes he's kind of like a side leader. He kind of like puts the team around him, lets players do their skills. He lets AD be AD. And I think sometimes people want him to be more like Jordan. I mean, more like maybe an asshole like Larry Bird or somebody like that. But he doesn't have to be that. That's like anybody could say, that was another era, another time. That kind of behavior is dealt with on the field now or on
I
the court
think
nowadays.
I think you don't gotta be necessarily an asshole or a prick or
Yeah.
whatever somebody want to call it. I think if LeBron was more assertive
Yes. Okay. There it
in
is.
his approach, because there's a difference between being assertive and being aggressive.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I feel if he was more, assertive, because there's a way that you could, hype up your team without looking like an asshole about it,
That's
without
correct.
calling nobody out,
That's
without,
right.
making somebody feel less than they role. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? That's why I
Yep.
tell people all the time, I'm never aggressive, I'm assertive. I get my point across. You heard what I said, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because I'm just that type of person.
That's
You'll
what it is.
know after leaving the conversation with me, you'll know where I stood on things.
And
You don't
that's
have to
exactly
walk.
it.
You don't got to walk away and be like, I wonder if he felt this type of way. No, I'm gonna tell you.
Well, that's practically why this one podcast became two full podcasts. Because now
Yeah,
we have literally two full podcasts that there's no doubt that nobody can tell what's on either one of our minds.
exactly. And I want people to walk away whenever they, listen to your show with me on it, or they, view my show on the Very
Yep.
Blessed Sports Podcast.
Definitely get to
Newbie
his
and
stuff.
Blaze is always the family. But I just want them to always walk away knowing they they wasn't confused about how I felt on
Exactly.
stuff. I
That's why I
don't
love it.
want them to be like, well, I wonder if he felt, Patrick Mahomes had a bad game or not. No, I'm gonna tell you, Patrick Mahomes had a bad game.
I
I'm
will tell you when
good.
someone has a shitty game. That is correct.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. This
Thank you
episode
for having
evolved
me
into so
again.
much. Oh, dude, we're just going to be doing it like we are not lying. When we said we're going to be popping out some podcasts and doing it, and you're coming on during football season, you're coming on, man, because, that's what the best is. It's so much easier. It's so much more fun to actually talk about it. Yeah, I can talk and I can rattle off 1,000 words in a second, but it's so much better doing it with somebody else like you.
I'm
Thank you,
definitely
Tay.
gonna have you on too, the Very
Yeah, I
Blunt
will on.
Sports Podcast, especially, when we get back, kicking and screaming like how we normally do. Just want
Yeah.
my